told you that the 401k, the plan that nearly every American is told to trust for retirement, was never intended to be America's primary retirement strategy. This plan came out in 1978 almost by accident.
It was never intended to be the primary vehicle for saving for retirement. It was only a page and a half long. It was it was a little fluky thing stuck in an end-of-year tax bill.
And those that pushed it forward never intended for it to replace pensions and become America's #1 primary retirement strategy. So today we're going to talk about how we got here and why it might be time for you to rethink where you are putting your money. Back in 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Act, which included a new section, Section 401k, that was originally created as a tax loophole to allow high-income earners to defer the income on their bonuses and their high commissions, because back then the highest tax bracket was at 70%. So these people were getting clobbered. But then in 1980, benefits consultant Ted Benna discovered that this section could be used for all employees to defer some of their pre-tax income for retirement. You see, back then, pensions were people's primary source of income in retirement. But with pensions getting increasingly more expensive because due to modern medicine, people were just living a lot longer than originally calculated to sustain the pension. Once corporations saw how this new Section 401k could drastically reduce their costs for offering pensions by transferring the responsibility of saving for retirement to the employee, 401ks exploded. And by 1983, nearly half of large companies in America were offering them. And pensions, you ask? On the way out. Today, most Americans are retiring with simply just a 401k, maybe something coming in from Social Security, and possibly a little bit in personal savings. You see, before the 401k, we had something called the three-legged stool of retirement, which included your pension, which was your guaranteed income stream in retirement, your Social Security, and your personal savings. So people back then were doing pretty good. But today, that stool is broken. Let's be real. We know most Americans are not getting offered a pension, and Social Security will be lucky if the new savers coming up have access to that. So you mainly have just your personal savings to rely on, which is your 401k. And we all know it's a recipe for disaster when you ask Americans to save for themselves, for their future, because according to Empower, the median, right, which is the middle number that Americans retiring today have in their 401k is just $210,000. And they got to stretch that for like 20 to 30 years. How is that going to be possible? But here's the part that most people miss. Back in 1978, the top tax tier was at 70%. So of course people wanted to defer their taxes because that's ridiculous, right? They were getting clobbered. The 401k was marketed as you'll pay less taxes in retirement because you'll be in a lower tax bracket. But today, that's not guaranteed. Taxes are actually at some of the lowest rates that we've ever seen in U.S. history. However, the U.S. is about to cross over $37 trillion in debt and counting. We've got programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid completely underfunded. And let's not even talk about the rising inflation. Do you really think taxes are going to be lower on you in the future? So now we're being told to save into a plan that defers your taxes until later with the hopes that they'll be lower, but they might be higher when you are going to be living on a fixed income and might need even more money just to keep up with rising costs of inflation. How does that make sense? And we also need to cover the fact that 401ks are in the stock market, which means when the market goes up, your money's going to grow, but when it doesn't, let's not forget what happened in 2001, 2008, during COVID, and most recently, just in April of 2025. Millions of Americans have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars inside their 401ks right before they need it the most. And there are times where Americans don't want to touch the 401k money because they'd like to leave it as an inheritance. But they can't do that because there is an RMD requirement saying that you have to start taking money out of that plan by the time you turn age 73, or you get whacked with even higher penalties and more taxes. Now knowing all of this, do you think the world's wealthiest individuals are saving their cash in these types of accounts? Here's what they're doing differently. They're not delaying paying taxes until later when they're probably going to be higher, and they are definitely not relying on the stock market. Instead, they are saving money into accounts where it will grow accessible to them in the future, all tax-free with zero stock market risk, and no penalties or age restrictions on accessibility. Aha! They're saving their money in an account that is called cash value life insurance. What is that? It's basically a permanent life insurance policy that has the ability to grow a cash value component inside of it that's going to grow accessible to you in the future, all tax-free through certain policy loans. It doesn't lose any money in the stock market, and there are no rules or restrictions around accessibility like what we have with the 401k, so there's no age 59 and a half rule or age 73 rule. Is it perfect? No, no financial tool is. But if you're looking for some type of an account that's going to give you stock market protection, going to allow you to access your money tax-free, and give you flexibility with when and how you access your money and what it's for, potentially purchasing a car, maybe purchasing a home, maybe paying for college, this might be the account that you want to take a look at. Okay, that was a lot. So if you're curious about how IULs work and you want to know more, I've linked 2 videos here that will tell you everything you need to know. As always, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video teaching you about unique strategies to avoid paying taxes and not dealing with any more market volatility. And I will see you back here next week on YouTube.